There's a lot of challenges with creating a thing that people haven't made before. I know a lot of people will say that CheckOUT is just a 90s mountain bike that we just slapped road bars onto, and I can't stress enough the amount of awesome engineering that's been done to make this bike meaningfully unique and optimized for adventuring. I'm Alex Bedinghaus. I'm a systems design engineer here at Trek, and I was one of the design engineers on the CheckOUT. I was involved with the new CheckOUT in pretty much the whole bike's development. In 2022, we started riffing on this monster gravel bike. Kind of came out of the COVID times. There's a lot of us in the office that were trying to link up big rides. We loved riding single track, but obviously we didn't want to drive there. So we're trying to figure out how we could make a really good hybrid of all of the things that you would want in both an on-road and an off-road bike, really designed around all-day riding. From there, the CheckOUT was kind of born. So at the outset, we didn't really know what we wanted out of this bike. We started out working on the next-gen gravel, but we were experimenting with this new category of just an adventure bike. Everything in the market was saying bigger tire clearance, slacker geometry, longer wheelbase. So we dug into that a lot more and tried to figure out what the right hybrid of all of those parameters would be. At that time, we thought that a 50C tire was really big. So we made our early geometry mules 45 to 50C tires, slacker head tube angle, shorter stem, wider bars, short chain stays for good maneuverability in single track, really just playing and figuring out what we thought was cool. Built a prototype that was awesome, that we really liked. Originally it was a rigid bike. As we rode that bike, we started to think about what the next level could be. What would it be like if we added suspension? We knew that we wanted about 60 millimeters of travel in the front. We found that that was a perfect sweet spot of not adding too much weight to the bike, but also giving really good ride quality and feel. But the forks that were on the market, they didn't really exist in the 60 mil travel range. So we did work with RockShox to develop a new fork platform, expanding on their Rudy line and going to this Rudy XL that's now 60 millimeters of travel. The suspension is really tuned for small bump compliance. Every little crack in the road that you would feel on a normal rigid gravel bike, you have to compensate for with your body and absorb that impact. The bike just soaks that stuff up. It was kind of a passion project anyway, so we wanted to see what would be sort of 2 steps ahead in the market, so we tried rear suspension. My background in road bike development has always been in Tour de France bikes and race bikes, so we've never really done a deep dive into how your rear wheel should travel with respect to your bike frame. So we walked across the building and started to talk to the mountain bike team on leverage rate and progressivity of leverage rate, rear wheel axle path, chainstay length and main pivot location. These things that we don't normally encounter in the road team. That was so cool to learn from the experts and to understand where we should put the main pivot and what the trade-offs are for that and how we optimize main pivot location for pedalability. And once we got the prototypes made, we really felt like we were onto something. The ride quality was amazing. The suspension's bottomless, it soaks up all the hits. Whenever you were doing really chunky stuff, it really saved your hands and back. And even on small drops, going as fast as you could, the bike was limitless. Every time we made a new proto, it was just a little bit more bike than what we thought we would need, and every time we rode it, it was just awesome. And once we got to the carbon fiber prototype and we were all riding it and having a blast, all of the feedback that we got was you need to make this thing, it's super fun. Once we got through that phase, it was kind of a redesign. The goal became, could we make the world's most awesome bikepacking and adventure bike? One of the things that we developed this bike for is just being really fast and efficient on a variety of terrain. And one of the big things that contributes to that are the handlebar with aggressive camber or flare. Normally with the road handlebar, your hands would be vertical, almost in a fist position, but this additional flare really tilts the hoods in. This really allows for an aerodynamic position in the hoods. And then the drops are a design that's really optimized to allow for a lot of different hand positions that you can move your hands around a lot, reducing fatigue and reducing kind of a point pressure of one specific position. All these things contribute to a bike that's fast on the road, but then also has good maneuverability off-road. The bike has 34 tooth to 38 tooth front chainring clearance, which hits a sweet spot for the bikepacking market and is still big enough chainring that you can ride it in a lot of gravel races and still feel good. Once you ride this bike, I think you'll find that the gearing is plenty. With a bigger tire, you don't need as large of a front chainring. And then on all of the adventure rides that we've taken it on, a 36-tooth chainring is perfect. Once we started digging into what this bike could do off-road and understanding what an adventure could be for this bike, we started to really understand that gear hauling was going to be a core part of its character. One of the big problems with long-distance ultra cycling, especially off-road, is just making sure that you have room for all of your gear, especially water. When we started developing the bike and developing prototypes, we started with a frame bag, seat pack, and a handlebar bag. But what we found was that a lot of the seat packs, once you started to load them up, really sway a lot. What we really came to is that racks are really nice. Rear racks especially, you can strap your gear down and have it sit in a more rigid connection to the bike. But when we added rear suspension, it made it really complicated for a rack. If we put all that load right on the axle, it really slows down the response of the rear wheel when you're going over big bumps. We really brainstormed for a long time on how to fix this because we wanted a rack, but we didn't want it to take away from the suspension that we'd worked so hard to develop with the bike. So one of the things that I came up with is this like quasi-suspended linkage rack, which I originally made as just a crazy idea that we could try. And then as we riffed on it more, we thought maybe this is possible. So what we came up with is this rack that stabilizes your gear, and it's designed around kind of strapping a dry bag to the top and then putting whatever you want on the sides, but while keeping a really streamlined and pretty lightweight system. We started to think about, well, what would happen to the rack if you were to take it down some gnarly single track? So we did load the rack up with the max load, rode out to our local trails and did several drops. One of which was 4.5 feet. Just to really make sure that we had maxed out what the rack would see. And the bike did awesome. We took a high-speed video and it didn't look cool. So yeah, we've done quite a bit of cool real-world testing just to make sure that the bike is robust. Around 2022, we went out to Durango. It was our 3rd or 4th revision of prototypes. And we started to really push the bike. We were doing some bikepacking in Durango. We were doing a lot of off-road riding and gravel. At the end of the trip, a few of us were talking about epic rides in the area, and the white rim came up. And we had like an extra day that we could do it. One of my colleagues and I just went to the start of the white rim at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I got to ride the prototype for the full white rim in a day. I just started ripping on the bike just to see how well it did on downhill, and it just soaks up all the moon rock and sand and loose gravel climbs. The bike was amazing. It was just the best day. Like, I finished the ride and my legs were tired, but my upper body was totally fine. And I think that's just the big takeaway from the bike. Every time that we've pushed it on some epic ride like that, the limiter is just how much your legs can push. It's not your hands getting too sore and fatigued to grip the brakes. It's not something in your upper back that's getting nervy or twitchy. It's not your lower back giving out. It's just your legs. That white rim day totally opened my eyes to what the bike could do. I mean, if you're gonna ride that, there's no better bike for that route. When we set out to make this bike as awesome as possible, we really shot for the moon, trying to figure out who would be the most adventurous, or what would be the most adventurous way that we could use a bike like this. And one of the people that we started to find out about was Justinas Leveika. 2 years ago, he won Tour Divide, and he had done in that same year a lot of really impressive rides. If you're gonna send the bike so far and try to do these long adventure rides, Justinas is the epitome of that. We had reached out just to get his feedback on what a bike like this should look like.
My God. Wow, I can't wait to see and feel how it rides.
We'll suit up, let's do it.
The bike is I think it's a new standard. Smell tells it all. Amazing! The suspension feels like it was the top wheel. I'm tripping my brain out. This is f***ing dream!
When you're testing, you try to get the bike to the limit. But even though we have been on a technical terrain today, I don't think we have reached bike limits. The last lap, I was sweating and the handle was all the way out. I was pushing and it felt amazing. I finished the lap almost shaking because it was so joyful. I mean, I see this bike changing the way I plan my routes. Now I don't have to stick to anything. I see a trail, I can take it. At the end of the trail, I can get on the road and still keep smashing it. Then I can turn off into the gravel road. It doesn't have to be smooth, it can be chunky. This bike opens up all roads, ATV, like an all-terrain vehicle. It's amazing.
I think the person that will gravitate more towards this bike is just people who just have a spirit of adventure. Once you ride it, you start to understand how far you can end up going. We may have ruined underbiking, but hopefully this opens up a new door into the future of gravel.
What the day?